People, more conversations. Okay. So this is Hera Job Shibe of Musings of the Shibe podcast, and I'm speaking to Andrew of Litecoin and soon to be launching the Koinyx exchange. And we're going to talk about, Litecoin, cryptocurrencies, and things that just come to mind about this space. So let's just get a little bit of how to know you stuff out of the way, Andrew.
Sure.
How did you get involved within the cryptocurrency space?
Well, I've been asked this question a number of times. I actually got asked yesterday, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a funny story. I came in with the second wave of people, what they call the second wave, and this was essentially the run up to $1,200 bitcoins and $50 Litecoin
Mm-hmm.
that Empty Gox created in the
Yes.
November December timeframe, 2013.
Yes.
So it piqued my interest, but even more what piqued my interest is the technology because I'm a technology-oriented person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an engineer, or I play an engineer in the daytime, and I'm a very hardware-oriented and focused individual. So
Okay.
what really caught my attention was the mining aspect. So I kind of spent a few weeks after, seeing all this stuff on CNN and all these other big news agencies. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna finally check this out after months of ignoring it, um, because it just does sound interesting. And hey, it sounds really, really good to get $1,200 bitcoins and $50 Litecoins. But of course, they didn't mention Litecoins at that time. It's just about bitcoins. So
Mm-hmm.
I spent a few weeks doing a lot of research, just tons and tons of research, researching the blockchain technology, researching what cryptocurrencies are all about, the decentralization, what exactly does that mean, the wallets themselves, what are exchanges, and just trying to consume this massive download of information of the ecosystem. And then I started poking around at mining. And I built computers ever since I was probably about 10 years old, which is when computers really started taking off as home PCs. And I just loved the fact that I could take my computer and use it to generate money. I mean, what a cool concept. And what I did was one night I finally decided, okay, well I'm going to set up my computer, my personal computer, which is a gaming rig at the time, and I'm going to mine with it. And I pointed it towards Slush's Pool, who was, I believe, the first pool creator out there for Bitcoin. Someone out there, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I pointed it towards his pool because it seemed famous, well known. And, I left it mining for about a day. And I think after about a day, I got a few scraps of dust, couple Satoshis from that whole ordeal.
Okay.
So after that, I said, well, this isn't going to work out very well. So I poked around a little bit more, and I found this thing called Litecoin. And then I understood at that time there's the difference between ASICs and GPU mining and everything else. It just took me a little longer to understand that. Once I got to that point, I pointed it towards some Litecoin pools and mined away. And I think within a day or two or three, I got a full Litecoin. And psychologically speaking, I was like, this is really cool. I got a full coin and not 0.00010 pieces of a coin. So that's kind of how I got into cryptos and even into Litecoin itself.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about there. You said that you are primarily an engineer by day and that you did hardware stuff and you
hmm
built your first computer at the age of 10. This is
hmm
something I like talking to people who are in the technology space. What was like the first thing you kind of like broke apart or took apart as a child?
So, as early as I can remember,
Mm-hmm.
I have been fascinated with electronics. My father's a technician, and
Okay.
he's been working on things and fixing stuff, fixing electronics for many, many, many years. And as early as I can remember, I remember doing everything from taking my toys and smashing on the ground to see what's inside of them, to actually more finessely taking screwdrivers and taking everything apart and looking at all the chips on the inside, the resistors, capacitors, everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I was certainly a destructive little child, but it was out of education more than anything else. It was a desire to learn how does that work. By
Okay.
the way, that's one of my favorite shows. How's it made?
How's it made?
I
I love
still
that
love
show.
watching that.
I love watching the older ones and the newer ones, and just watching how the progression of how stuff is made. What used to be like done one way at a period of time, and now how it's done now. Everything's like smaller in some cases, and sometimes things are much bigger. These
Hmm.
machines, and it just fascinates me. But let's talk about this. You said you built your first computer at the age of 10. How big was the hard drive then?
Oh, let me see. I think at the age of 10,
Uh-huh.
that hard drive was probably about somewhere between 20 to 60 megabytes,
Okay.
and it was probably about $1 a megabyte at that time.
Okay. So when you look back on that and looking at what you make now and what you made then, do you look at stuff like when I go to the store and I see like scan discs that have like 16 gigabytes on it or can hold 16 gigabytes and I'm like, oh my God, I remember my computer used to be just that. It was like $2,000 and it wasn't my computer, it was the family computer and it was like
Hmm.
almost like a car to get that computer and here it is. It's just and it's like, $30 to get and I'm like, oh my God. And I
It's
mean,
unbelievable.
it is very unbelievable. And now there's the big thing with Apple coming out with the watch, the wearable devices and how small they are.
Hmm.
And it's just, I mean, I guess we are living in the future, really. We may not have flying cars, but we are kind of living in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And the next step is going to be technology-wise for computers. I think is going to go one of two ways. It's going to go into quantum computing, which a lot of
Hmm.
people know, or I would assume know about, and then the other stuff that's even lesser talked about is biological data storage.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
know if you're aware
I'm
of
very
that.
familiar with that because they're doing stuff like from tattoos to where they're able to like kind of almost scan a person and read the information like it's going to pump out the data for like if you're a diabetic like, readable stuff to they're putting pills in people to monitor their heart rate to monitor to go after cancer cells to kind of like use the nanotechnology and that is and monitor people and
Well,
actually go ahead.
sorry, sorry, I was going to say that's a little different from what I'm talking about, the
Okay.
biological data storage. So we all know that computers runs off of zeros and ones, which
Yes.
are essentially just voltage drops over frequency.
Mhm.
Um, Biological data storage, instead of having just a zero and just a one, it actually taps into a genetic code because we have four amino acids, and
Mhm.
utilizing um, four combinations, so 16 different combinations as opposed to just a one or a zero. So it
Oh.
massively increases the amount of data you're able to put in such a small space.
Oh, okay. Wow, I have not heard that. I'm gonna have to look into that because you're right, it will increase the data storage of almost anything and everything.
Hmm.
Would it outstrip what they believe a quantum computer can do?
I haven't read on any kind of processing capabilities. I'm just going off of basic data storage.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my earlier statement was incorrect. It's not one of two ways, it's more both ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this, since we're talking about this, do you think, people talk about quantum computers, do you think there's actually a truly functioning quantum computer out there that's in existence and not these supposed prototypes?
I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There was years ago, there was this company that claimed they were able to actually create one, and
Mm-hmm.
I think they sold them to some major players like Google. Um, I can't even remember what the name of the company was, but it just kind of died off. I mean, there was a couple news articles about it, and then it just died off. So I have no idea if that stuff legitimately works or not. Um, when it does work, when they can actually go ahead and do it, I mean, it would be amazing. It would be another leap and bound into technology. Basically, what the transistor did for us
Yes.
um, back in the 60s or 70s, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head. Might be as early as the 50s. But when the transistor came out, that just catapulted our civilization into the next stage. And quantum computing is going to be able to do that next stage of development.
Okay. Because the reason why I remember seeing those articles to where someone stated they developed it and then it got gobbled up and then you just didn't hear anything. And I'm just wondering if that's the new like type of stealth program where like, whether it be the military or big corporations, they developed a lot of stuff well before anyone else has access to it. And I'm just curious, as someone who's in the tech space, if you suspect there's actually a functioning quantum computer out there.
D-Wave Systems, the
Mm-hmm.
D-Wave, that's the one. That's
Yes.
the company I was thinking of.
Yeah,
But I
because
didn't
I'm.
really, it was out there, and then I just didn't hear anything about it. Maybe
Mm,
someone bought the patent and they just said, we're keeping it to ourselves. I have no idea.
yeah, that'd be interesting to see what happens because when people talk about quantum computers in the cryptocurrency space, they're concerned about it breaking the blockchain. Do you think that is feasible or possible?
I So first and foremost, I do want to come out and say I'm not a software developer. I'm not a dev.
Mm-hmm.
I mainly focus with hardware and electronics. But my thinking of that would go, the blockchain is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You have this massive ledger, and everybody who's downloaded the core Qt wallet for Litecoin or Dogecoin or Bitcoin, they have a copy of this ledger. Now, to be able to break everybody's wallet at the same time, you can't really do that. You have to come with some kind of attack, such as the 51% attack, which is essentially trying to fork the coin. So you have half the world's users fighting against the other half of the world's users, and even at that, you're not really breaking the blockchain itself. You're just kind of splitting it off.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, some people are going to be affected, but it's still one of those blockchains are still going to hold that integrity of the original one, and some people's transactions may not actually go about. With quantum computing, I mean, there's two things that come to mind that you'd be able to do as far as attacks go. Yeah, you could probably do a 51% attack if you had the processing power to create the hash amount required for it, which would be 51% of the network, which is substantial.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, there's another attack that might be feasible, which is trying to guess the private key information for the public keys on the blockchain. Because our coins really don't live on the wallet. They
No.
really live in the blockchain, and I think that's a misconception that people have. Our coins always live on the blockchain. Our wallets are just that quote-unquote processing center that we can visualize in order to see what we own. What we really own is the private keys to that small section of the blockchain, and if someone were to go in and start poking around and trying to guess the private keys, then yeah, they can go off and steal a lot of coins, a lot of money. So off the top of my head, those are the first two things that might be um, an issue if quantum computing came out, but I don't see it as a necessary destroyer of all cryptos.
So we would, in essence, we probably would just have to change things a bit to combat it. But I don't see it coming online. But it's just one of those theories where people say, if a quantum computer were to exist, the da 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 situation would happen. So, and it's
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a larger challenge trying to get mass adoption for cryptos before we'd have to worry about
yes.
quantum computing.
I like, a good conspiracy or future theory as anyone else, but I do think, like you said, the mass adoption of cryptocurrency is the biggest concerns. So let's go into that. You are going to pretty soon launch your own exchange, which is called uh, Coinify. Am I saying it right? Koinyx.
Koinyx. Koinyx.
Koinyx. And it is going to be, as it's stated on the site, it's going to be regulated and compliant with the U.S. regulation laws.
Hmm.
Do you have any international compliance that you guys are going to be doing, or are you just going to be U.S. based?
Um, so real quick, I just want to clarify any confusion. Koinyx is spelled Koinyx, not to be
Okay.
confused with the other cryptocurrency exchange that we thought at the time when we were creating our name was defunct and apparently may not be now, which is Coin.x
Okay.
or Coin-X. So I just want to get that out of the way so people know.
Okay.
Um, as far as regulations go, so we definitely have been working a lot with FinCEN over the last
Mhm.
few months and making sure that we're compliant with the AML KYC laws, the anti-money laundering, know your customer laws, as well as all the other FinCEN stuff that comes with it. We also started researching, or we did do some research into the SEC laws to ensure that we were not applicable or applicable towards those laws. So far, we don't have to worry about anything with that. And we also did look into the US EU safe harbor compliance laws, which are basically privacy laws for the EU. And as far as our plans go, we do plan on opening in the US and possibly Canada and the EU, if not at launch, then shortly thereafter.
Okay. And is your exchange going to be like a decentralized platform, or is it going to be a more centralized base? How is this setup going to be?
It is going to be a centralized exchange. It is going to be a centralized exchange, and one of the larger reasons why we have to go about following all these laws, because if it was a decentralized exchange, then there technically should not be any ownership, so there's really nothing to go about regulating. You know what I mean?
Well, that seems to be the trend. I've seen two different types of places attempting to launch decentralized exchanges. And I just, as a platform, while the technology I think looks great in the sense I like decentralization, as far as compliance, I can see that being problematic for both the individual and anyone associated with that. So I wanted to talk to you about that, the difference
Sure.
between centralized and decentralized. I understand the need, whether people want it or like it, the cryptocurrency is being regulated. But there is I guess you can say, I don't know if you can call it libertarianism or hackerism within the cryptocurrency space where they truly are very much against any type of governance. And as someone who's opening, into this space, how do you, not only be compliant, but also kind of get, which seems to be the bulk of certain aspects of the cryptocurrency space that don't like to be compliant?
Well, it's a really interesting concept, and maybe I'm going to touch a little bit on philosophy here.
Okay.
The differences between centralization versus decentralization in terms of adoption. So, stupid question, and this question gets tossed around with cryptocurrencies all the time, especially when you have to explain what a Bitcoin or a Litecoin or a Dogecoin is to someone outside of it. How does it get its value? Why is it worth that? And then, of course, our answer is going to be, well, how does fiat get its value? It's because the government tells us that it's worth that much. For cryptocurrencies and for I'll use this terminology, bartering of any other type of non-fiat based commodities or money, it's really up to the end user of how much is it worth. So when you start talking about that kind of stuff, you really have to ask yourself, as much as I love cryptocurrencies, and please, listeners out there, don't get me wrong, because I am 100% for cryptos, but you have to understand that there does have to be some sort of centralization in there in order to promote more of a mass adoption of the coin. So back to the exchange and why this plays into it. Well, interestingly enough, if you have this decentralized completely, and I mean completely decentralized commodity or currency, then you're not necessarily going to be able to go up to grandma and say, I've got this Bitcoin. I think it's worth $50 because someone else told me it's worth $50. And then she's going to ask you, well, how does that person know? And you really don't know. But when you start having these more larger centralized locations like exchanges, they're able to facilitate that price and able to let other individuals know this is how much it is. It's centralized to a point, though, because it's not like the exchanges are, I shouldn't say, the exchanges shouldn't be manipulating the price.
Yeah.
But let's say all exchanges don't manipulate the price, and based off of arbitrage between the exchanges and traders going ahead and trying to pinch every penny, they're really the ones that are creating the value and that price and telling everybody else out there what that coin is worth. So I know that was kind of a long rambling, but the basic message is you kind of need to have those centralized locations in order to tell other individuals, both inside and outside the crypto space, how much our product, our Bitcoin, is going to be worth.
Well, let's talk about that centralization. You're seeing what I like to call co-opting by the legacy financial systems, particularly with the Facebook twins and their opening of their exchanges.
Hmm.
And there are quite a lot of exchanges out there in the cryptocurrency space in various countries on various different levels of regulation. But do you see in the near future at some point where you're going to have one type of exchange, whether based in the US or Canada, wherever, just like you have for like NASDAQ and the Japan Stock Exchange in Europe, those type of things happening as part of regulation and the financial legacy trying to control this type of market?
All right, so are you talking in terms of people inside the crypto communities setting up these businesses, or are you specifically talking about the financial industry coming in and trying to set up these businesses?
Well, both, because you have some cryptocurrencies that they want to be the only place, which is what all businesses like. But you have, in the sense that the financial system, they see cryptocurrencies as a threat. And you see different types of bills and things out there. And as a way of kind of controlling this threat, they're going to go to the government and say, hey, you only need one exchange. There's only one NASDAQ. You don't need like 100 of these places. Do you see that as a potential attack or a potential way of the government regulating the cryptocurrency space?
Well, I'll start off with assumed good intentions from the
Okay.
government.
All
The
right.
regulators, the regulators don't know. The
Okay.
regulators, they try to make up laws across the board, everything from financial to industry to agricultural and everything else. So they're really getting all these tidbits, and the tidbits are going to come from the lobbyists, and obviously the lobbyists are hired by these institutions to tell them, hey, you need to do it this way, and this is the reason why, and it's
Hmm.
obviously very biased towards the lobbyist.
Yes.
Um, as far as the financial industry goes, do I believe that there are people in the financial industry that are becoming more aware of the technology? Very
Hmm.
much so. Very, very much so. Do I believe that they're scared and running for the hills? Some of them, I think, are. I don't think it's as much as people may think.
Hmm.
Um, with that said, I do want to add another tidbit in there. One thing that people need to understand is that there is definitely a difference between the technology, the blockchain technology, and the products. The products being Litecoin, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Black, Dark, Neos, everything.
Hmm.
Those are really the products or the byproducts of the technology.
Hmm.
What I see happening, honestly, is that these financial institutions and banks are going to start hiring people, developers within the crypto ecosystem, to start implementing that same technology on their platforms. That's honestly what I think is going to start happening.
Well, it's already started happening. I don't know if you saw this, but JP Morgan put out an advertisement that basically said, hey, we're a financial institution. We know you might not like us, but we're interested in hiring people in the cryptocurrency space. That was pretty much
I,
their job ad.
I did, yes, I did see that, and I think I'm going to try to remember this verbatim. They said something to the effect of, "Love Bitcoins or love cryptocurrencies, we want to talk to you."
Yes.
And yeah, I did see that ad. Maybe I should put my name out there, see what they say.
Yes. But they're looking
But
for all different levels. They're looking for people to market. They're looking for people to develop. They're looking for people to educate, and it found it very interesting to me
now
personally.
that I didn't know. Did they actually? Does that is the
Yeah,
application actually say that?
the application that goes into the different types of things that they're looking for. They're looking for people who understand the marketing of the cryptocurrency space. They are looking for people who are understand the development. They broke it down into three different parts there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I find it very fascinating how quickly financial institutions go into different spaces, and I just my hesitancy is I don't want to see it, the block technology itself is great. There's no way you can stranglehold it, but you
Hmm.
can stranglehold the products as you talk about it. Mimi, seriously? I'm sorry, I have a cat that's just going crazy.
Not a problem.
Um, I don't want them strangling hold the product because I believe the product is great. I believe the product can do the thing that everyone wants to do, which is to do transactions over the internet.
Absolutely. And in its truest form and sense, it is, as I tell people when I talk about cryptos, I say, be your own bank.
Yes.
Store your money. Be your own individual. You don't have to wait for the next day to get that next $1,000 out of the bank just because they're doing fractional reserves. You got $30,000 right there in your wallet, in your user interface. You can do whatever you want with that. You can buy a ton of things right now. You can go to God, there's so many of them. I'm just drawing a blank. But you know what I mean. You can go to all these different institutions, and now we have websites that make it even easier to transact one coin to another. So even if you don't own Bitcoins, you own Litecoins. I can go to Shapeshift or
Yes.
another place like that,
Shapeshift. Yes.
or any other exchange, and just exchange it for Bitcoins, and then go and use those for anything. Overstock.com. I'm going to specifically mention them because they seem to be the only large company out there that is really into cryptos and not just trying to do it to make a easy dollar. They actually hold a portion of the bitcoins that they receive, which is something that we absolutely need. If people listening out there, you need to promote this to businesses and tell them, don't just accept the coins. You need to accept them, and you should be holding a percentage of them, because that's what we need from businesses, not just going through Coinbase and exchanging it directly for fiat. That's not what we need right now.
No, and it seems that's what's causing the downtrend in the price as far if people are concerned with prices because the merchants are constantly, dumping the coin. They're not necessarily holding a percentage like Overstock. And I believe Overstock is starting to, if an employee chooses to pay people in Bitcoin if they want to.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I read some things about that. I think they were actively trying to pay people in Bitcoin.
Yes. And that needs to be that's the transition is holding Bitcoin business to business relationship where if you're Overstock and you have all these servers, you can pay your server farm in Bitcoin or you can pay your employees in Bitcoin, and that way the circle the cycle can grow bigger and it's not being cash out into fiat.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's really going to be the next step when we start seeing businesses. So it's going to be businesses that are going through Coinbase. Then hopefully they wisen up and they start holding, and
Hmm.
then after that they start paying their employees out in cryptos.
Okay. So let's go kind of back a little bit about the exchange and holding. Uh, since FinCEN and the SEC and a lot of this U.S. regulation, both on the state and the government level, is happening, it seems to me now that there's more people that have piqued their interest in Bitcoin because it's gotten that kind of safe government approval, like your meat.
Hmm.
And this seems to be the year for that. Do you see, a bigger, more people coming in, or do you think it's still going to be a slow transition this year as far as a mass adoption?
Um, I don't know at what speed, but I can guarantee you that we're going to see at least the same level of adoption that we saw last year.
Okay.
There are a lot of big things happening. There's a lot of venture capitalist money that's just being poured into the crypto ecosystem, from exchanges to all kinds of businesses. New wallets are coming up, new ways to pay, payment processors. I mean, just everything and everything. If a venture capitalist hears the word Bitcoin or cryptos, you know, there's a good chance that you might actually get some money out of them because they're looking for that. And when that venture capitalist money starts pouring in, these people are not dumb. They're very smart and they
Mm-hmm.
know how to invest wisely. Even though sometimes it seems like they're just taking a dartboard and throwing darts at stuff, they're really not. They're measuring the risks associated, and they probably have a lot of contacts in the news industry, the media industry. So I have a feeling as more and more venture capitalist money gets poured into it, they're probably going to start contacting their media representatives, their news contacts, and they're going to say, hey, do me a favor, write me a couple nice articles about cryptos. I think we're going to start seeing that. And this is just speculation on my part and just my personal feelings. But, follow the money.
Well,
It's really what it's all about.
let's talk about follow the money. VCs are expecting a return. And while you see a lot of the development, whether it be the 2.0 space or just even the original space with the wallets, they expect a return in the money. And there seems to be some technology that's great for usage, but there's not, for example, change tip. There's not
Hmm.
necessarily a big return.
Hmm.
How can that bridge happen to where that technology, well, a great idea, is still a good investment? It's just it's going to have a low return. How do you convince a VC to invest into something like that?
From a business perspective,
Mm-hmm.
the easiest way I can say is you're going to have to market it to where you can make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
There are a ton, just an absolute ton of great ideas out there, and a lot of them are really for the people,
Mm-hmm.
as they should be, just like cryptos.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're interested in making a day job out of it, you have to be able to somehow make money off of it. Now, I know with Change Tip, there really is no incentive there, and people kind of pointed this out. Why are they getting venture capitalist money? And the speculation behind them, from what I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, is that ChangeTip at some point in time might start selling user data
Yeah,
to
that
the
was the
data
speculation. Yeah.
processors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, myself, Andrew Vegetabile, that lives in Baltimore, Maryland, at such and such address with such and such phone number, is going to be sold to these large data mining companies. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but that's certainly a way for them for ChangeTip to get around that. This is how we become profitable, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they could sell it to venture capitalists. Do I believe it's right? No, because I hate data miners
Yeah.
with a passion. But from a business perspective, they really need to be able to look at how can they make it profitable, even if it's not necessarily right there in your face, knowing like an exchange will take a certain 0.01% off the top for trades kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, even if it's not obvious for folks.
Okay. But it seems to me like even with change tip, like could you convince a VC that they're not going to get the big return, but they're going to get that bread and butter, where there's going to be a consistent stream of income? Is that something that, for the beginning of the cryptocurrency space, that's what it is? It's just a consistent stream of income. It's not going to be a big return at the beginning, or
Well, I think most of the venture capitalists, and again, I'm just speculating and guessing at this point because I'm not one, obviously.
yeah.
Um, I would suspect a lot of them kind of understand that already, that they're not going to get that quick turnaround. And to be perfectly frank, from my understanding, a lot of these VCs are in it for the long haul, be it
Mhm.
like 5 to 10 years. And
Okay.
crypto's a crypto year, as was mentioned last night, is kind of like dog years. I mean, every year for us is like 7 years for the outside world because things change so much. So um, I think as a whole community, as a whole ecosystem, everyone involved in cryptos, we kind of fail to realize that things do happen a lot faster than the outside world. So even if we're not promising those major returns right on the front end, I still
Mhm.
think venture capitalists are certainly going to be interested.
Okay. Because it seems like there was a, I don't know if it was Coinbase or BitPay had a really big VC turn, but it's not the same as, for example, like Tumblr, where or what was just recently appraised at billions of dollars. I don't know, maybe it was WhatsApp or something out there where with when people think of technology and the internet, they think in billions.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it seems in the cryptocurrency space is in the millions. And I'm just wondering if that affects the valuation of the technology, or we're just not really fully actualizing the blockchain technology.
Um, for one, I think it was Coinbase that just got that large dump of VC money.
Yeah.
I think it was like 75 million
Mm-hmm.
for
I think it
their
was.
C. Sorry, go ahead.
I think you're right. It's Coinbase. I think because they also have the exchange too, and they're not just a wallet.
Yeah, and they came out with the quote unquote first regulated exchange, which they're
Yes.
getting in trouble about, by the way.
Yes, they are.
But anyway, geez, I forgot what the question was about.
Well, I was just because when people think of technology just on the outside space, they think in billions because Tumblr,
Oh,
Facebook, you always see the
yeah.
billions, and then you see in the cryptocurrency space, they see just millions, and they're like, huh? There's like a
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting dynamic. I mean, if we were to put together all of the, I'm trying to bring up something right here right now, so excuse me for 1 second.
okay, go ahead.
If I could find the link. I want to say the Bitcoin market cap is 14 billion.
Hmm.
4 billion. Okay, so it's not as much as I thought it used to be. It's been a long time since I looked at these kind of charts. My passion is not in the money, so I don't look I don't look in the charts that much. So, and a combination between Bitcoin and all the other alts combined, we'll just give it a real nice rounded estimate of $5 billion
Okay.
of value. And the interesting portion, and I'm not an economist either, mind you. I learned a tremendous amount of economics from being involved with cryptos, by the way. But you have this market value of a product that is not just a product; it's a way to make payments. It's a bank. I mean, it's got all of these wonderful features wrapped into one thing. But how do you quantify that market cap versus venture capitalist money versus the development that's happening versus the hardware that and everything else that gets sold for that amount? I mean, I personally can't even wrap my head around something like that.
Well, yeah, and I think it's the block technology in itself. Just speaking of the technology and the space is so undervalued. If you think in the sense that these customized chips, like the ASIC chips that are being made, were pumped out so quickly, so rapidly, and it dramatically changed the crypto space in its sense. But also think of just whether you negative or positive about Silk Road, if you believe with the government evaluation on that particular website. It was only
Hmm.
up for about roughly 18 months, 2 years, and it did $1.2 billion, all in
Hmm.
Bitcoin. Just one site doing that
Yeah.
one particular activity.
Yeah.
And that affected the entire marketplace. And it just
Yeah.
seems, and that, well, people talk about the killer app and whether or not, agree or disagree about this. There is a valuation with that technology that's just not, I don't know, it's just not quite hitting its stride. If you think that that one particular little revenue stream was $1.2 billion, that just mind boggles me in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I mean, if I were to use the analogy of fiat going through
Hmm.
there at $2 billion,
Hmm.
um, how much fiat is out there? I mean, there's just massive
Trillions.
amounts. Yeah,
Yeah.
trillions. How many physical pieces of paper are out there? It's the one reason why I have a hard time to wrap my head around all of this, and I'm sure there are listeners out there that's going to disagree with me because they probably maybe they know better than I do, is that out of that $4 billion market cap, only maybe a couple hundreds of millions of dollars of physical coins made its way through there and just continued to be recycled.
Yes.
And this is why I have trouble wrapping my head around it. It's you have all of these other individuals out there that are just holding,
Yeah.
and they're holding forever.
Mhm.
because they're banking on 20 years from now that their Bitcoins are going to be worth whatever, $100,000.
Mhm.
And the people that actually go out there and utilize the cryptos, as a matter of fact, I believe I read something not too long ago, a few weeks ago, that stated only about 30% of Bitcoins out there are in circulation.
Yes, I saw that same article, and I found
Okay,
that.
so like 70% are being held. So that means the entire market cap is being influenced by 30% of the Bitcoins out there.
Yes.
I don't understand how that I understand how that can affect a market value for obvious reasons
Mhm.
because of the exchanges and how everything plays out with them. But I don't know how a venture capitalist would view something like that and view investing, again, because they're all about economics and risk and how do they make a quick buck. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say quick buck, how to make a buck. And I just don't understand that viewpoint and how to get around that piece of the ecosystem.
I
I've got a
I
good grasp.
don't,
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't understand that other as well, and it affects me on a philosophical sense because I believe the purpose of cryptocurrency is to use, not necessarily like spin like the baby boomers and spin into debt, which everybody has right now. I can go on and on about baby boomers, but you can hold 10%, like friends, always put
Yeah.
10% of your check into the bank account and use it. I mean, the reason why Bitcoin had its value was because some guy spent $10,000, or not $10,000, but 10,000 Bitcoins for pizza.
Yeah.
Because people use it to, buy quote unquote drugs or whatever material. People use it, and its sole
Yeah.
purpose is to be used.
Yeah.
It just mind boggles me that people, you see these articles all the time that it's the hoarders that give Bitcoin its value, and it's not a stock option. It's actually a currency. It has to be used.
Yeah.
And I also spoke to someone yesterday from the Dogecoin community that has a business. It's called the Dogecoin Athletics, and they talked about it, and they talked about other shy businesses. They connect and talk to one another. How when the Dogecoin price goes up, they see less customers, and it's like, but you get more for your Dogecoin. It doesn't make sense to me. And then I don't know.
Well, I can kind of understand that. So if the price goes up, then
Yeah.
these individuals are probably figuring, well, the price is going to continue up. Might as well hold on for now
Yes.
because I think I'm going to get more bang for my buck. Excuse the pun there,
Yes.
later on. Um, so it's when you start seeing a stability period is when you're going to start seeing more and more people utilize the currency,
Mhm.
which was I would admit every cryptocurrency's problem because it's all the volatile markets, and
Mhm.
because of those volatile markets, you're getting those people who are just willing to go in, buy a few, hold them, or you get those day traders that want to go in and continuously trade and make some profits off of that. So interestingly enough, it's those day traders that are trying to make the profits that are really going to help bring adoption because they're going to increase the value of the price, not the holders themselves that are utilizing
Yes.
it. But but my point is it's counterintuitive or counter logical to the entire idea of cryptos.
Yes. It is, and it just mind boggles me, and I don't know, maybe I'm too naive or too much of an idealist to be like, use it, you know,
Yeah.
use it, please use it. I mostly tip, and I do purchase and buy things whenever I can. But I just a strong believer that I hold some and I use it. I just want to use it. I want to see what the next thing I could either purchase or use or use the technology for itself. Like for example, there's messaging services and
Hmm.
uh, email as far as protecting you, getting away from those data miners.
Hmm.
I don't know if you use your Gmail a lot, but I personally don't like the fact that when I go into my Gmail, there's an ad right on top of my little email box, and it's like, ugh, paid ads. But I've been using it for so many years. It's what the address that people know me from, and it's like, ah, you got me, Google. You got me.
Yeah, I don't like ads, and if I click on a website that has too many ads, I
Yes.
feel like I need to go take a shower because I'm that dirty. I need
Mm-hmm.
to scrub my history because who knows what's loaded on those ads.
Yes, I have
But
like ad blocker. I scrub my history on a daily basis, but
yeah,
even
yeah.
still, they still somehow get you. But uh,
But I mean, that's part of their business. I mean, they
that is
provide the
part of the
free
business.
email. And
Yes.
back to my other point about change tip, you got to find those innovative ways to try to make money and paid ads for free services. It happens. Faucets do it all the time.
Yes.
And I never visit a faucet anymore because they're all it's not just one or two. I mean, they'll have something like 10 ads, and I just click on it and I literally feel just dirty that I just need to close the history, wipe everything clean, reopen my browser all over again just because of that.
Well, also also noticed an interesting trend where you can no longer click away an ad anymore. Like you are forced to, like if you use Spotify or YouTube, you have to watch the 30-second advertisement. And it frustrates me because it's like, I used to be able to click the channel away. I used to turn
Mhm.
the page, and now you're trying to tell me I don't have a right to do that if I use your service?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when it's
YouTube
free.
especially because I use it
Yeah.
nightly. I like to listen to music
Mhm.
and I don't have a radio near my computer, so I just listen to radio on YouTube and I can pull up whatever song and all of a sudden 15-second ad or um actually the 15-second ads, those are the worst ones. The ones that are not so bad are the 2-minute 30 ones that after 5 seconds I can skip.
Yes. Yeah, it takes a while. It takes a while. And there even seem to be getting longer on YouTube. I've seen some 5-minute ads. I'm like, who's gonna sit here for 5 minutes? Like, this is not, 3 in the morning, late night, those whatever they call those product placement things where the guy with the juicer and stuff. I was like, come on now.
Hey, I would watch a Slap Chop ad for like 5 minutes. I'm telling you that right now. Vinny with Slap Chop, I would watch the hell out of him. I would click
Okay,
on his YouTube videos.
I will confess, I used to watch the rotisserie chicken one all the time because I actually got that thing because I just wanted my chicken to spin around and look all juicy. Of course, it never did.
What
It
what
never.
I've been noticing though on YouTube,
Hmm.
people are putting their full videos as advertisements.
Yes.
And I am not shitting you. I saw an advertisement, quote unquote, for 30 minutes. And I watched about 10 minutes of it just because I was curious to see what it was. And for the life of me, obviously, I can't remember what it is right now, but it was like a mini movie or something with um, crap, what's her name? Poison Ivy from Batman and Kill Bill.
Oh, Uma Thurma.
Uma Thurma. Yes, it was a
Yes.
30 minute quote unquote ad with Uma Thurma.
Wow. I didn't know they went that long. I've only seen like I said, like a 5-minute one. I didn't know they went 30 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, this one was 30 minutes and it was for a few weeks a couple months ago.
Wow. This is crazy. But I'm it's crazy and stuff like that. And yes, it's free, and that's how they make their money. But I just want to see the blockchain technology disrupt that, where you have some people are trying to like the micro payment where it goes on both ends. You pay to send your messages, but if someone wants to send a message to you, you have to pay me. You want to advertise to me, you have to pay me.
Hmm.
And what are your thoughts on that? Do you see that being a viable market?
Um, Certainly. I mean, I really, to be perfectly honest, I don't know too much about it, but
Hmm.
messaging, social media, stuff like that is definitely something that's been ingrained in the culture for many, many years now, ever
Hmm.
since MySpace kind of took off. I guess MySpace was the first one that really took off, and anytime where you have a social media service and you're trying to get more and more people, you start utilizing that service. Yeah, there might fall prey to having to pay for messages.
Yeah, and I see that as a potential trend, and I wonder if that would be a means of that mass adoption because you do see these message services like Telegram and Glyph where people, or even on Twitter, where people are able to send money to their friends and stuff like that through the messaging app service, but all your information is private, so you don't have to worry, unlike Twitter, you don't have to worry about somebody having your information or even your financial transactions, even though
Mhm.
everything's on the blockchain.
Oh yeah.
But
Oh,
which,
by the way, when I
yeah.
do when I do talk about when I do try to spread the word as a good disciple of cryptos,
Mhm.
one of the things that I emphasize is the ledger and the fact that, on my computer I have my wallet, and that wallet contains the blockchain, aka ledger, which is every single transaction that's ever happened in the history of that crypto coin. And
Which,
then
yeah.
I pulled out my wallet and I say, can you imagine if I had every single transaction that Visa or MasterCard ever had in this wallet right here? Because that's
Mhm.
basically what I'm telling you. And then I look at the person and I say, how amazing is that?
It is amazing, but let's talk about that in a sense, because to go back to your exchange, like you have to
Hmm.
do, because of U.S. regulations, the KYC and the MLA, know your customer stuff. But
Hmm.
because the blockchain technology, everything's on the public ledger. I've been reading some interesting articles where cryptocurrencies is not the way to launder money. I mean, do you foresee a point to where regulators are going to see that it's not possible to launder money, or do you not quite see that yet?
Well, it here's my take on it.
Okay.
And this goes back to the, are you anonymous
Mhm.
when using cryptos?
Okay.
You are pseudo anonymous, and this is what I tell people. You're only as anonymous using cryptos only if you can't attach any kind of personal information with your wallet addresses. Because the minute that happens, that wallet address is now associated with you. Every single transaction that's ever passed through your wallet is now known to the world. Um, the it's 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 a complicated thing to try to tell people when you're talking about cryptos, and trying to tell them, yeah, it's kind of anonymous, but no, it's not really anonymous in the sense that everything is public. And trying to explain that, it's a difficult position. I don't see it at all as a means to launder money, to be honest.
Mhm.
It's so much, if for logistical reasons, yeah, it may be a little easier to click a couple buttons on a computer or on a phone and send $10,000 to, somewhere over in one of those countries like North Korea or something like that, where we have issues with them, where they're known bad states. But it is so much easier to launder fiat, physical items. I mean, they can go out, literally print them. North Korea, we highly suspect that they've had a printing press making money for years and years and years.
Mhm.
They can move them around. They can change the serial numbers to whatever they want. I mean, who's going to be able to and check? Who's going to check a truck full of $100 bills, that, tens of thousands or even maybe millions of bills, and going to go in there and enter every single serial number in a database and verify that against what we have in the Fed, the U.S. Fed? I
Mhm.
assume that they have some kind of serialization database there. No one's going to do it. So logistically, for the United States, it's much harder to track that fiat than it is to track that. That didn't really come out right. It's easier to launder fiat because, those types of reasons. Cryptos, it's much easier. You can go in. We have tons and tons and tons of brilliant people out there, computer scientists, and they can analyze the hell out of that blockchain, and they can tell you where those coins were born, where they went to for the first five transactions, and where they ended up at.
Yes,
And
I see that all
sorry.
the time, especially with the Mt. Gox tracking those funds or the different scams out there, and they break it down to where, okay, they went like this way, and then they went to small, and then they went back to this way, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. I can't even follow it a lot of times myself.
They broke it down to, okay, they went to 150, then they combined it together to 1200, and then they broke it down to 70, and I'm like, but I thought I was anonymous.
Perfect example. I know we talked about this right before we went live. Perfect
Yes.
example. Their Paycoin.
Mhm.
So there are high suspicions that Mr. Garza of Gaul has been laundering some of his ill-gotten gains via um, the high staking wallets and moving them around and sending them to exchanges for some easy money. And there are a lot of people in Bitcoin talk that are actually analyzing the blockchain and saying, you just laundered 2,000 coins, they're at Cryptsy or they're at Bittrex right now, and you just sold them for X amount of money. And it blows my mind seeing stuff like that.
Well,
Just blows
I
my mind.
I don't remember which exchange it was. There was a break-in, but someone was very quick on tracking the coins and then going to the exchange that someone was trying to sell it and it says, "Don't accept coins from this wallet. It's laundered money." And I think they were able to stop one of the transactions, but not all of them. I mean, it was
Huh.
that quick. And I forgot which one it happened. It happened a couple months back
Was
where
it
they were
BTE or
it might
BT?
it might have been BTR or it might have been a break-in before that, but they were able to track it very quickly. Like people were on it, and they were looking for the coins, and they're going to the exchange and say, please don't sell these coins. We think these coins are from stolen coins.
Were they Bitcoins or were they alt?
They may have been alt, and I
Okay,
think there might have been a Bitcoin part of it, but they were like, please don't sell these coins. I don't remember the article completely, but I remember them
interesting.
tracking it very quickly in like within a pretty rapid time because when you see people tracking these the different transactions when they're trying to track people and track what's going on, it sometimes takes
Hmm.
days or weeks for them to do this because they're really analyzing the blockchain. And it seemed like they were very quick on this one, and it was like, wow.
Let me tell you, anybody in the audience listening,
Mhm.
if you're good at analyzing data,
Mhm.
start learning how to analyze a blockchain. Let me tell you, you're going to be worth a lot of money in the near future.
That's I was wondering because I saw uh, a University of Trinity, some students were creating a fraud prevention for Bitcoin, science and stuff like that, and a software application where they can track fraud.
Hmm.
And I was thinking that is the way, that's the next wave of making money is tracking and analyzing the blockchain and tracking trends and tracking transactions. Just in case, as far as, fraud prevention or stolen wallets, just tracking down these funds.
Yep,
And even just hiring exchanges, hiring people such as that to make sure that they're not receiving, in essence, stolen goods.
absolutely.
Particularly, like, for example, in the US, regulations and stuff, you have to be worried about where funds are coming from.
Absolutely.
So that just again, it you're not completely anonymous. It's sometimes with numbers and this technology, it just blows my mind.
I got a perfect example of that not anonymous situation where and tracking the blockchain. There have
Mhm.
been numerous instances where Coinbase has been closing people's accounts.
Mhm.
And what had happened was, these people went off, they bought some Bitcoin, and then they wanted to go and party, so they bought some illicit materials. And
Yes.
Coinbase apparently, watches that kind of stuff, and if they detect that there is some illegal activity and they don't want to be associated with it, they'll close your account right away. It's a big stink in the communities,
Yeah.
and I have differences of opinions that I'm not going to give here right now, for and against something like that. But just saying that this perfect example where you're not really anonymous. If your name is attached to it, you can be tracked, and people know that is your wallet.
Yes, and that is a big stink in the community, for different reasons and stuff like that. But it's just it speaks to not only the power of the technology in and of itself, but it shows that it is a as far as financial goes, a very strong, viable product. Where if you are living in the world which we currently live in right now, where for whatever reason, good or bad, all financial transactions have to be tracked.
Hmm.
This is the way to go about it. I mean, think of it in the sense that if the U.S. government, for example, were to have a blockchain for all transactions, and you can actually track your public dollars at work.
You can
What
get
is
away from AHC or
yes,
ACH or
yes,
whatever the hell the acronym is.
yes. You can see how it's being spent, what it's being spent on. I mean, there's always, I'm a military brat, and there's always been issues with it comes to, as far as the government goes, the credit card, where people
Hmm.
take the government credit card and they're like whooping it up, and buying cars, buying this, buying
Oh
that.
man.
Yes, and I don't know if people realize this, but built into every financial bill, as far as it goes to Congress, they actually have a portion. They know where they're going to lose a certain amount of fraud, like 3% or 7% is built in, where they know they're just gonna fraud is going to happen,
I can
and it's
believe that.
built
A
into the
lot
budget.
a lot of businesses do the same exact thing. They build fraud into their projected revenue streams.
Yes, it's like called shrinkage or something like that, where they
Hmm.
know whatever's going to get stolen and stuff like that. And it just, but when you think about from a small business like the store, and they have 2 or 3% shrinkage, and it's like thousands of dollars. This is like billions of dollars you built in just for fraud, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yep. It's amazing. Stores do the same exact thing. They actually build that fraud right into the projected revenue streams. And interestingly enough, what they end up doing to mitigate the risk is they increase the value of their wares. They pass along that fraud to the people. So what something used to cost like $13 is now $15 because
Mhm.
that's part of their risk mitigation strategy for people that steal it.
Yeah, and it's not just stealing it, like actual stealing the physical products, but fraud as far as credit card fraud, which is something the reason why, another thing that people, advocate the blockchain technology is you don't have to worry about chargebacks. You know,
Yeah.
just like cash, once it's spent, it's done pretty much,
Yep.
unless you go through the process of going through a refund process.
Yep. Now,
And
I will say this, however, that just like anything else, there's advantages and disadvantages. And
yes.
literally, I am not kidding about this. Just today, I found out that someone tried to use my credit card in Texas, me being in Baltimore, Maryland, and my credit card was blocked. Thank God for my credit union because I don't like normal banks. And,
Uh-huh.
it's my credit union's very good. I like them. And, a couple minutes on the phone, fraud, okay, we're done here. Your card is canceled. Go order a new one, and you're not charged for that amount. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Chargebacks can be looked at as both ways, but in terms of fraud on the consumer's end, that can certainly be a not so good thing. And I know there are people out there that are trying to work on ways to mitigate something like that, but then again, it goes back to the centralization portion.
Hmm.
You're going to have a centralization or centralized business in order to handle situations like that. So, I mean, there's going to have to be a give and take here in those type of situations.
That's true. That's interesting you mentioned Texas, because the same thing happened to me some years back, to where what happened was, and I know what happened, is I swiped my card at an ATM machine that did not provide me my funds. And it's one of those skip things or whatever they call them, where they card read people and they get your card information, and then they make and create it. And it happened in Texas, where literally the very next day, they were very quick about this. The very next day, I go buy my morning coffee, my morning coffee routine snack thing right before work, and then I'm going to go and do lunch, and my card gets denied. And I go and I count, go into my account and look and see that someone had purchased like some furniture and stuff in the state of Texas 10 minutes after I purchased my coffee and drink.
Oh man.
And I'm like, and so I had to go through the process. I had already reported the fact that my ATM transaction didn't go through to my bank, so they already knew about that. And I also reported to the ATM machine. But it's
Hmm.
like, how could I be in the state of Texas and the state of Nevada within like a 7 minute window? I mean, they were quick about it. I mean, this was like early morning hours. I mean, the time difference in Texas and Central, I was like 7:30, so 8:30 there. It was a weird transaction to begin with, but they were like next day. It was like, wow. I was like, but
Good
yeah,
for you.
I know, and it's like I could not believe it. Eventually, I got the money, new card, and all that stuff. But yeah, same thing. Texas, I'm like completely different state. Haven't been there in years. There's no way. But yeah,
Well, if it
no.
makes it feel better, they bought groceries with mine, or tried to at least.
Oh
No,
well, okay.
no furniture here.
Oh, okay. So at least they're trying to feed themselves. They weren't like trying to whoop it up or anything like that.
Well, you hope so. It could be like $80 worth of Hershey bars. You never know.
True, or I think I saw an article like a weird transaction like of things that people buy, and there was like Kobe beef steak and champagnes, like outrageous, like high level
Wow.
food. Yes, of and it's like they were stealing from people that really didn't have that money, and this is what they were buying, and I guess it got detected or whatever. But it's
That's
crazy.
upsetting.
It's very upsetting, and I don't know if there's any true real solution beyond adoption of blockchain technology. But the credit cards are not going anywhere. They're going to be here for a while. There's
Yeah.
not going to be a movement away from that.
Right, right. And what we're actually going to see, and what we actually started saying, is that the um, cryptos and the blockchain chain technology is starting to adopt the credit card technology.
Mhm.
There are companies out there that are starting to offer debit cards and credit cards for cryptos. And I think that is a great way for adoption to say, hey, you can pull out your Visa, or you can pull out your Koinyx card and swipe it, and all of a sudden, hey, just take the bitcoins or litecoins right out of my bank account, and there you go. I think that's a great way for mass adoption to go.
Yeah.
Show people there are alternatives, and it's not just coming out of your bank account. It's not just being charged with some 5% APR interest kind of thing. So
Mhm. Not only that, but also on the merchant end, they don't have to worry about paying that merchant transmitter or anything like that. It's just coming straight out of the card. There's not that huge, whether it's 1, 3, or 4% depending on the merchant or whatever.
yes,
I believe
exactly.
American Express is even higher than that. I don't know what the number is because they don't allow people to publish the number, but American Express, charges a high amount, a percentage from their merchants to use their card.
Mm.
It's a crazy amount.
Well, all of that stuff gets passed on to the consumer.
Yes, it
All the,
does.
and people don't understand that you're paying high prices for stuff is because companies like that, they're logistically, they go in there, they say, we'll give you this ease of use, but you're going to have to pay, and those businesses will pay, and they pass that on to the consumer. So even if I use straight cash today,
Hmm.
unless everybody's using straight cash today, then I'm going to pay more than I should be for whatever it is I'm purchasing.
True, and if you do use like the debit or credit card, even with a Bitcoin or something like that, you still have to pay, more than $5 in some places to process your transaction.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, that goes back to the passing it on to the consumer.
Yes,
They
and
built that in.
they built it in. And it's just funny and fascinating how technology is supposed to make things easier and ease of usage, yet the expense attached to it seems to be way higher than the old systems.
Goes back to our previous conversation. You got to find a way to make a buck.
You do have find a way to make a buck. You do have to
So,
find a way to make a buck. Well, we're having a great conversation, but there's a last bit I wanted to talk to you about.
sure,
As
sure.
someone who is part of the Litecoin Association and being part of the community, developing your own business and things of that nature, and we were talking about centralization, how is it being part of this association and being part of that community and development, how has that, been for you, and how do you develop this association to be something that the community is willing to turn to?
Um, okay, so I've been working with the Litecoin Association for, I want to say, somewhere between the amounts of 6 to 8 months now. And I was really invited into the Litecoin Association originally as an ambassador, which is just a feel-good title because of the work that I did with the community, and then as a director because I was frankly a lot more active than everyone else. Um, I really, really enjoyed doing what I do, and I really enjoy helping people and doing what I can for adoption because I do see real world value in cryptos. And I'm not just, feeding you or the audience or anybody else listening any BS. I really do feel that this is going to be the next big thing. Um, Maybe not even technology wise, financially wise, the next big thing for everyone. And I've put a tremendous amount of work. I don't get paid for anything that I do. I spend probably anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a night with cryptos, either working on directly with Litecoin or the LA to cross community interaction because work I don't just work on Litecoin. I've done other things to help other coins, but I also socialize with a tremendous amount of coin communities. Very well known, at least I think I am, in the Dogecoin community. And I helped Dogecoin out when they did the hard fork to the um, POW, which also is known as merge mining, trying to bring exchanges and other companies up to snuff to ensure a seamless fork to other smaller communities and really trying to advertise them out there to let them know that, hey, this is a community that everybody needs to know about because they really care, like Neo's coin. Um, Fantastic developer, and they're a smaller community, but the developer really, really cares and is doing a lot of tremendous things. I To be perfectly honest, I'm kind of ranting more than anything else. I forgot your question, but I love what I do. And go ahead.
Well,
You look like you want
we
to
were
say
talking
something.
about like the sense of centralization, and there's been issues with like I guess with the Bitcoin Foundation, but the having an association, even the Dogecoin Foundation has some issues, but having
Hmm.
an association where in a place where people do like decentralizing, they like being an individual and being their own bank and doing their own thing, and they don't
Sure.
necessarily want somebody to be like, well, I know the right thing, kind of a deal. When I'm not saying that is the case with the Litecoin Association, but how do you
Hmm.
deal within a community that has that kind of a stance to be like, we're here for you guys. We're not here to tell you guys.
Well, this is my approach to it, and I don't think that there's anybody that's going to disagree with me. I
Mhm.
take a grassroots approach to everything I do. I am literally out there every night. I talk to a tremendous amount of people IRC. I'm on the forums, all kinds of different forums. I'm on Reddits, different subreddits, and I'm out there and I talk to everybody and anybody I can. You PM me on any of those mediums, I'm going to answer you, and I'm going to answer you truthfully. And I'm going to put some thought into something other than okay, and then send that off.
Mhm.
And I really, really, really try to do my best to connect to the communities. And so far, yes, I've had some issues in the past where people have said, we don't need an association to tell us the direction. I don't think it's been as much as other foundations or associations,
Mhm.
like the Bitcoin Foundation, where they seem to be this unreachable, pie in the sky type of organization that
Yes.
you can't really approach them. I'm
Mhm.
a very approachable person, and I encourage anybody out there to come and talk to me and debate me on the forums and tell me why you think I'm wrong, because I want to know that. I want to learn from you. That's really how we can all grow as a community. Um, Perfect example of a time when there were a couple individuals that said, you don't speak for me.
Mhm.
And this was when I basically announced on Twitter to Josh Garza, and I said, well, to a lesser extent, or to more of an extent, CoinSwap, because Josh Garza from Paycoin or Gall bought CoinSwap, and I said, you know what? Remove Litecoin because I don't want Litecoin to be associated anywhere near anything that you touch because I can imagine it's going to turn diseased, which eventually it did. And
Yes.
I got a lot of slack from that, saying, from people saying we're decentralized and we don't need representatives and everything else. And I told them flat out, because I went and read every single comment that someone cited about that, and I counter argued, and I said, look, I'm doing this not just for you, but I'm doing this for every other coin out there, because this is going to put a black eye on the communities. And here we are a few months later. I was right, because he's
Yes.
being investigated by 10 different three-letter agencies, including the SEC, the Homeland Security, the IRS, the FBI, the CIA, whoever else is involved as three letters. So, um, I'm doing it because for the passion, doing it for the communities, and I know people are going to hate it. I'm going to get the trolling, but I just put my head up and say, you know what, I'm better than that.
Well, I also want to talk about that because you were the first to do that. I guess you kind of say you almost were the shield for other coins that had the same kind of sentiment where they did not want to associate with CoinSwap. And for those who are not aware of that, CoinSwap was the exchange that was bought by the paid coin or Josh Grazer's company. And I think Namecoin, Darkcoin, and even Dogecoin asked to be taken off that exchange because they didn't want to get wrapped into that.
It was Neo's coin did it first.
Was it? Okay. I saw
Yeah,
your tweet for mostly, but okay.
yeah. Well, I get more attention than the other folks. Neo's coin actually did it first,
Okay.
and then shortly thereafter, I did it, and I believe in the same night, Dogecoin and Blackcoin also asked to be delisted.
Yes.
And you know what? If I can provide that kind of shielding for other coins, I am more than happy to go along with it, because we're all in this together, and if a lot of different coin foundations, because with the exception of Neo's coin, that what came straight from the developer,
Mhm.
but myself, Dogecoin, and Blackcoin, we were all parts of the foundations for that coin, or the associations of that coin,
Mhm.
and we all decided, I guess that night, that hey, I'm not going to put up with this crap anymore. So I did it first, then I can't remember which of the two it was, and then the other one followed, and perfect example where there are these foundations that are looking out for their own community's best interests.
Yes, and I like that about that because there's, the cryptocurrency space, and I think we talked about this a little bit before we start broadcasting about the sense that with scamming it's an easy money, easy mark, and that shows and demonstrates there's a value within your space, but it doesn't mean you have to take it. You don't have to take it and get scammed. And for you as a head of an association saying that you don't want your coin, your community to be associated with something that's obviously bad for the community is important.
Yeah.
And that's what a foundation or association is supposed to do, is saying this is a bad thing. And
Yes.
these are the reasons why, not just because I don't like it or I don't like that person. These are the reasons. Your reasons were very legitimate and very sound. It wasn't just like well, I don't like that type of person or personality type of deal. It was a
Yeah.
sound. It had some backing. It had some facts. It had some issues, and it had examples and questions,
Yep.
legitimate questions.
And then shortly thereafter, CCN published an article, and Cointelegraph also published an article. Actually, Cointelegraph tried to get all of us, and successfully did, in one area, and interviewed all of us at the same time, which was difficult to get all of us in one area at that same time. Um, that also brings up another interesting topic, because there are other what people perceive to be as scams out there that may not necessarily be scams. So I actually get more from the other direction, where people are urging me to label things as a scam, where
Yes.
it's difficult for me to be a judge and jury for something. Perfect example, LTC gear, which has been a huge topic of conversation for months and months and months now, because for 3 months they have been apparently um, hackers apparently went into their database and modified a lot of the user data, and the owner had to go in and manually check everything and make sure everything was okay. And there's a bunch of other stuff that happened. I'm not going to get into the dirty details, but basically you have this business was paying out for, I don't know, 6 months or so, 8 months or so, and even before that, he successfully developed and shipped FPGA hardware for Litecoin. And now you have an issue where something happened, someone hacked him, modified his database and a bunch of other stuff, and he's had 3 months he's been working on this, and people are screaming scam, and they're saying let's go after him, and they're saying let's hire lawyers, and other people are saying, well, let's just hire someone in Romania because they're from Romania to kill them, and you know how nasty people get.
Yes.
And they're begging me to say, okay, this is a scam, we're done here. And I'm not giving in because there are legitimate companies out there that are not actual scams, but just failed companies. Everybody is quick to label something as a scam, but because we're such a young, budding industry, there are probably, if you think about it logically, a larger percentage of companies that are legitimately just failed companies,
Yes,
or something else happened with them.
and that is hard to see when a company fails and when a company succeeds. To distinguish the difference between something that is a scam, where there's nothing there to begin with, and just someone who is just bad at business. And
Yeah.
that just happens. And when you come to investing your money and purchasing your products from somebody, you still have to be cautious. And I tell people to be cautious and do their research and understand that this is such a new thing. It's going to happen. And there's a difference between someone who, like if you go to a Subway or whatever and get a bad sandwich and having a bad company that doesn't do anything, doesn't make a sandwich, tells you have a sandwich. It's invisible. You know,
Yeah.
see the sandwich, it's invisible. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it's there. You know.
Yeah, and you know what? Even with and I'm going to get trolled the hell out of tomorrow for this statement. Even with Gall, in the very
Mhm.
beginning, they looked like a very successful company, and frankly, I ignored them because I ignore successful companies because I also moderate. If people don't know already, I moderate Litecoin Talk and the Litecoin subreddit, and I only get involved when shit hits the fan. Well, they were okay for X number of months, and nothing happened, and then all this stuff started coming out. There was this Paycoin thing and Paybase, and Amazon and Walmart were going to take them, and that's when the interest started peaking in my mind. And then the buying of CoinSwap, and I said, this is not good. Something bad is going to happen. But even with that, I can't directly say in the very beginning that he was a scam because it looked very legitimate. And even today, I still kind of have doubts, but with the amount of everything that's literally happened, that doubt is diminishing very, very, very quickly.
Well, I had some doubts about the company. I thought it was very interesting that it was entering the mining space when everyone else was collapsing.
Yeah.
But it was starting out to be kind of legitimate in the sense that it was doing this, it was doing that, and it was going into client mining and not necessarily hardware mining, even though they did sell hardware stuff. So I
Yes.
watched it, and it was in the Dogecoin community for a while, advocating the script mining and stuff like that. But when he started making statements that he was got Amazon, Walmart, and Target accepting this a particular coin before even
Yes.
Bitcoin was being accepted, I was like, huh. And then I looked into it, and I guess he does have a big financial, legitimate player backing one of his companies. I was
Not
like,
nearly as big as he claimed, though.
true. And I was like, okay, there is a seed of possibility, but how is this guy before Bitcoin getting accepted? Because Walmart has pulled its gift cards off of eGifter and the other one that sells gift cards. They used to be on Walmart, and Walmart wanted no association with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember off the top of my head, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the other one, this e-gifter and gift card, or one gift, or one of them, and
Hmm.
so I found that very strange when,
Exactly.
and so
Exactly.
and then Coinfire blog did the article where they like, well, let me go talk to Amazon, let me go talk to Walmart, let me go talk to Target, and actually did some journalism,
Hmm.
which is kind of hard in the cryptocurrency space. It's not necessarily
Yes.
always happens. And they asked and they verified, and they took weeks for them to do this. They didn't initially publish just an opinion. They're like, well, we went and talked and talked and talked and emailed them back and forth and published that, and then their site got hacked. and then but they still kept at it as journalists. And I just find it very fascinating that none of this within the community red flag people to where they were like, well, maybe I shouldn't. Some people just aren't willing to question, and I just don't understand that. Where there's so many people that are very tech savvy, very smart. I don't know if this just has some personal real world nativity or something, where they're not
Yeah,
questioning this, and like, how
I
is that possible?
now I this is speculation on my part,
Mhm.
but I suspect that a lot of people that got involved with that fiasco,
Mhm.
this is of course after the cloud mining and the other miner, the physical miner stuff happened, but
Mhm.
anybody that got involved afterwards, this might have been their first crypto experience.
Ah.
That's the speculation on my part, and I actually did talk to some more well-known members on Hash Talk who have since left the community, who were really, really large supporters, and their answer was basically Josh was charismatic, and we kind of got wrapped into the hype, and we're all human.
Mhm.
We all make mistakes. We can all get wrapped up in the hype. We saw a very charismatic person, and people end up following him. I, I don't want to invoke this because it's like the number one internet rule you never invoke. But I mean, look at Hitler. He was a charismatic person, and people got wrapped up into his hype. And God, he was not a nice person at all. So,
No.
it's one of those situations where people got wrapped up into it, and even after the fact, after they invested so much money, they might have even understood that it was a scam, but they invested so much that they can't afford to declare it as a loss, and they continued with the charade. That's very possible. And nowadays, after all of the documentation from the SEC came out, and all of the, I want to call them leaked emails, but they weren't even leaked. It was just Gall forgot to set their Google groups to private. Someone found them.
Oh,
It was
wow.
like, yeah, it was like 50,000 emails. I mean, just ridiculous amounts of everything private that that they didn't label as private, and it's all that stuff. If someone's around after that, you just kind of say, all right, you know what? You're in this for yourself, or you really don't have any business being in this kind of industry just yet until things simplify for you. That's kind of my take on it. But and they're not the first company, they're not the last.
No.
Two perfect examples from the Litecoin community of businesses that failed or are scams were the Fibonacci ASICs and the Flower Tech ASICs. I mean, they came out and they promised such and such hash at such and such power at such and such price and said
Mhm.
they're going to have it delivered by this point in time. I do I believe they were scams? Initially, no. I don't think that those companies came out of scams. In the end, were they? Or were they at least not truthful with their I'll call them investors at this point because they use the pre-order model. Yeah, I think they were very misleading with their investors. As a matter of fact, Fibonacci is being sued by a group on Litecoin Talk, and Flower Talk is being sued by another group on Litecoin Talk. And these companies they come in and they say we can do this and that, but they don't. The problem is at the very end of the day they don't make amends. All that pre-ordered money that people spent with them, they don't bother saying, okay, we didn't reach our goals, so we're going to try to do our best to make amends, and they just don't do anything. And the absolute worst thing a company can do, drop all communications. Once that happens, that's pretty much a done deal. So, sorry, I kind of rambled on a little bit there.
No, it is pretty much a done deal, and it's one of the things I look for when I look at the different kind of cryptocurrency businesses that come up, and I look at them, and I'm trying very much better because I personally got scammed a couple different times myself where I didn't question things. I just believed it because I was so enamored with the idea. I keep thinking of I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Finding Nemo where they're in the deep
Oh
deep
yeah,
water,
I love
and
Finding Nemo.
yeah, and Dora's looking at the lights, and it's like I see the lights. I want to go to the lights, and it's that big angry fish that's gonna eat them.
Yeah.
And I sometimes get enticed, but I look and I see about the communication. Can I contact this company directly, either by phone number or email? Do they have an address on their website? Is this address a real address? I try to do a little bit more research, and there's some people that are better at it than myself that are very quick in saying, hey, this is not this site lists what is it called, the money transmitter license, and that's not their license. It's for a different organization and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And yes, so when a company ends communications with the community, that's never a good sign. It's negative. But I have to say this about the cryptocurrency community. Unlike other types of industries that have had these issues with scams and failed businesses, they're very quick of reporting and suing and going after these companies because a lot of times you see various companies that collapse and nobody goes to jail. There's no restitutions. It's just, oh well, it just happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll bring this up again about LTC gear because this is
Mhm.
another situation that people are just anally retentive about for obvious reasons. I mean, 3 months
Mhm.
without payments in a cloud mining service. Um, First and foremost, I will tell you this: the owner is notoriously bad with communications. Same issue, they had some issues with their hardware products and, notoriously bad with communications. In the end, he pulled through. Hopefully, they still pull through, especially since I would have lost a lot of money if they don't otherwise.
Mhm.
But and I forgot where I was going with this. I'm sorry, I'm so tired. The daylight savings times really screwed me up this
Oh
weekend.
yes, I woke up very very sluggish and was like, I need 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, um, you know what? I forgot the initial question. I'm sorry.
Oh, we were just talking about, you're saying about the LTC and communications and the fact that I was saying that it's interesting that the cryptocurrency space is willing to sue. They're willing to file complaints. They're at this. They're not going to allow this
Yes,
to collapse and be like,
yes,
oh well.
yes. Extremely active. Okay, now I remember what my point was. So,
Okay.
perfect example, real world outside of cryptos, Bernie Madoff. I
Yes.
mean, how many years did he get away with his literal Ponzi scheme? I mean, 15 years or more. I
Mhm.
mean, it was just a ridiculous amount of time. Nowadays we're seeing Ponzi's that last a few weeks.
Yes.
And people start calling them out for scams if they're not already blatantly calling themselves Ponzi, and
Mhm.
people are still jumping on board for easy
Yes, I saw
money.
that. I saw that.
CryptoPonzi.org or whatever the hell is this week's flavor. Um, but in this goes back to way back in our conversation when I say a year in cryptos is 7 years on the outside. It's like that dog years mentality. We move so fast. LTC gear, it's been like 3 months. Bernie Madoff was like 15 years, and there's a difference. There's a correlation there where Bernie may have been paying off some people or even everybody, maybe, I don't know. It was still a Ponzi, and there has to have been someone that wasn't getting paid, and it's just amazing. And for right after the first month of the 3 months, people started talking about lawyers,
Yes.
and they started talking about more than lawyers, going out to Romania and personally talking to the owner in person, and then the threats and everything else. I mean, it's very active space, or at least the keyboard warriors are active. Not,
Not
I
only
don't know.
active, but like with, like, for example, the Alex Green, Ryan Kennedy, Moolah thing. When that imploded, people just started. scouring the internet for everything and everything, and it seems to be the case with, for example, that we talked about the Josh Grazer and finding those emails. They will find
Mhm.
your Facebook, your Instagram, your baby mama information
Yeah, yeah.
out
No,
there.
they will.
They will, and
They
track
will.
everything. They'll find out which school did you really go to, what your grades are, what your thesis was. They'll put it out there to make sure, well, whether this person exists or not, or whatever different names and things of that information. And I just find it very fascinating that this particular in this instance, even though there's scams are existing, that this community is like, no, 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 no. I'm getting a lawyer. I'm spending my own money. I know I'm not going to get anything in return, but you are going to pay in some fashion, whether it's
Yeah,
economical or going to jail.
I see a lot of both. I see the doxing every day, which, by the way, if you
Yes.
remember Litecoin Talk, do not dox. I will delete your stuff and you will be issued a warning immediately.
Yes.
You know, I see people dox all the time, and I see people, do the lawyer thing. One of my employees for Koinyx is actually a lawyer, and he is involved right now with a case with a business in the industry that just didn't pan out. I'm not going to talk much more about that, but I'll just leave it be because that's his particular business. But yeah, I see it all the time, and I think it's great. I think it's fantastic that we, as a larger community, starts to identify these businesses that are unscrupulous and identify them as such and say, hey, we don't want you here. Get out.
And they're very quick. I mean, the cycle of the scam is not lasting as long. It's going quicker and quicker, and we're identifying them and putting it out there and making these checks and balances within the community, within ourselves, to make sure that this doesn't occur again. And I think this demonstrates when people look back and reflect on the outside, looking into this community, that while they might not understand the technology aspect, they understand that the community is willing to do da 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 this. They're not willing to accept these scams or frauds. And maybe
Exactly.
more and more people, when they become aware of Bitcoin and Litecoin, while they may hear the negative things, what they're going to hear is that person went to jail, that person was sued, that person, had to do X amount of dollars and stuff like that. Where you don't necessarily hear that all the time with, for example, when the economy collapsed and really not many people went to jail over that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I always see news surrounding that kind of stuff, but yeah, you're right. Not many people went to jail, but there's a lot of people that think a lot of people should have gone to jail for that kind of
Yes.
stuff, which is sad.
Yes.
There's no accountability in that part.
Hmm.
Um, Ironically enough, our own Attorney General, or soon to be not Attorney General, Eric Holter,
Yes.
used
Yes.
to be a lawyer for a firm that represented literally all the major banks. And it's highly suspected that the reason that a lot of the banks were never investigated was because he used to be a lobbyist slash lawyer for them.
Well, yes.
Um,
That's not a
sorry.
suspicion, but that's pretty much, that's just how the way things are done. And I think
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
tired of how the way things are done.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. Rub my
just
back and I'll rub yours kind of
yes,
situation.
just look at with the FCC and the net neutrality thing and what initially went on and how people got replaced and that changed and stuff like that. It's just I think the American people are just kind of tired in the sense about how things are done. And you saw, for example, the reason why Satoshi Nakamoto developed the program that he developed, the technology he developed, was because of the global collapse, because the economy collapsed, and because he was tired of the way how the financial system currently worked. Um,
Absolutely. It's ingrained in the blockchain, the very first message on the blockchain.
yes, it was about the global collapse, and
It was about the German chancellor.
yes, and I think that's what benefits greatly from the community is because from the precept of its conception, from the very first coin, is that we don't like the way things are, and we're going to actively try to change. We might be successful in every change we make, but we are going to do it.
Yeah.
And
I'm going
and
to take
I
a page out of the libertarians book and say, you know what? the people run the government. It's not the government that runs the people, and that's really the idea of cryptos. Is we need to understand that we do have the power, whether or not the media tries to do as much as they can, and the lobbyists and the financial institutions and those with money to try to control us. But we, the people, really do have that power. And the day that the people wake up and understand that we have that power, then we can really take this country back from the unscrupulous individuals in the industries, multiple industries, not just financial, but
Yes,
multiple
multiple.
industries that are lobbying for their best interest every single day and trying to control us through nefarious means. And
Hmm.
it's really sad because, you know, I'm I'm sure there are other people out there. I'm positive, 100% positive, that are not American, but me being American, firstborn American, by the way, firstborn generation American on my father's side, um, I will say that I believe in this country, I believe in the people, and I believe in the government, but unfortunately, the government itself is run by people, and people are subject to um, being incentivized and every other means of, I wouldn't say corruption, but um, I wouldn't say intimidation. I can't even think of the word I want to say.
Well, they're easily, you might say, distracted and
Distracted.
slow walk things. You know,
Yes.
they take a little jaunt down wherever path they go and take their time about things. And I always consider it to be more like when it comes to the government, they're like, when you were a teenager and you had to clean your room and you shove everything under the bed and in the closet, and of course it appears that everything's clean, but it's not.
Yes, very true.
Once mom comes into the room and just moves the bed, or just opens the closet, you're found out. It's just you just hope that one time she comes in, she goes and just looks around and goes, okay. And for a while, the American people were doing that, but now we're like, no, you need to get under the bed.
Complacency.
Yeah, you need to get under the bed. You need to fold all your clothes. You need to clean that closet. You need to take the trash out, and you need to get it done.
Yeah,
Or
it's a
yeah,
complacency
yes,
problem.
it is a
You know,
complacency problem.
a lot of people this is my opinion, and we are veering way off topic here.
We're all over the place here.
But maybe not so much, because this is kind of the heart of cryptos, is that political activism. But
Yes.
I think the American public, at least, is distracted way too much with Honey Boo Boo and the Kardashians and who is the next football Super Bowl winner than it is with anything else.
Yes. But because of technology, though, while it's still distracting us, we still have far greater access to information than previous before. But also because of things like Twitter, and if you look at the Arab Spring, or even here in the states with the Black Lives movement and in the Occupy, Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street, people are organized far better than they have in the past. They're quickly doing
Yes.
more action than they had previously before. And I
Yes.
and I've seen that transition increasing in the last, I would say, probably since 2008, with Obama literally being the first president being elected because of the internet. Really, I mean, if you just look at that campaign and stuff like that, because of the internet, um,
Yes, I would
shifting
agree.
in,
Based off of the demographics, yeah.
yeah, and just the shift and the change that this technology is enabling people to communicate better, being aware more, having more access to information, and then coming up with solutions. Just like Satoshi Nakamoto came up with a solution for uh, the blockchain technology for the financial end, and there's people seeking to do, far as encryption goes, for communication, to be able to communicate without being fear of retribution by either by the government or by other people. I guess you could say social media in the sense is that solution of organization, just a way is all over the place, really. But I do see there's some change, and I do think that Litecoin, Bitcoin, and Dogecoin is a step forward as far as activism and progression as far as a global movement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at the very least, worst comes to worst, then our products don't get adopted, and instead the technology gets adopted. But even at that, if the technology gets adopted, the blockchain technology, at least we'll be able to see what really goes on with the financial institutions, because again, everything is public.
Yeah, public. You're not that anonymous. They'll find you. They'll know
Yeah,
that you. They know
they'll
you bought
find you, or we'll find them, is more like it.
true. They know you bought a bag of chips. You weren't keeping to your diet. We know.
I would love, and personally, I would
Yes.
love to see if my credit union or any other
Yes.
bank, let's say Wells Fargo or Chase or any of them other ones, they adopt the blockchain technology. Let's see where they're really moving the money around. Let's
Yeah.
see if we could trace that blockchain, and let's see who they're paying off as far as Washington donations.
Well, not only that, but you also think of the sense as far as investment goes, like where are they really investing their money because it's done in real time. So if you look and you see that they're investing a certain amount of, for example, here in California is the big thing about Oakland Raiders and the Niners are going to move their stadium, or one of the two NFL teams are going to move their stadium in either Carson or this other city or this city. So it's a big battle to where the new football stadium is going to be. So you can see whether years before, where the bank is buying real estate or whatever in real time, and see why they're doing that. Should I invest my money into that? Is that a good investment for my money? And see, in that sense, as far as economic power goes, is
It's an interesting thought.
well, you have to think about inside trading. Like these people on the high echelons, they know one another, and they're always, talking to one another and giving each other's inside
Oh
tips.
yeah,
And you
it's
see
all
that,
inside trading at that
yeah,
point.
yes. But as far as the public goes, you only get so much information because it's all filtered. But on the blockchain, if you have ever good data analysis yourself, or someone who's a good data analyst and you pay somebody, you can see the trend. You can see where the money is shifted, and whether or not bet against or bet for something.
Yep. I guess Chase Bank better invest in some mixers.
Yes, to, to hide things, that whatever it is that they put their bad investments in that one company or something to hide that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Or
I
or
mean,
whatever political guy that they're going to donate to.
yeah. Well, they right now I think they pretty much all of them invest in both sides pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a
Oh yeah.
difference really, and it's sad just the level of financial corruption. I used to work in politics. I just yeah, I've seen it all pretty much on some level or another.
Hmm.
But I would love to see the blockchain technology operate on either the big political level, where you can see all your financial dollars, your government tax dollars go, or even just on the big financial level where you can see where the money is going, where all these fractional reserves are going, where everything is going. I mean,
Well, I can guarantee you, if the products don't get adopted, the technology will, and even at that, that's still an important part of our race, the human race, and to that day, I'm looking forward to it.
all right. Well, I'm going to let you go, Andrew, because it's probably way past your bedtime about now, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it's so great. I enjoyed this very much.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, my last question for you, Andrew, is this. I want you to disclose a little bit more information about you, information to find yourself. But since we're talking about technology and things like that, do you believe in the robot uprising?
The robot uprising.
As a hardware
Artificial,
guy, do you
eh,
believe?
artificial intelligence is outside of my purview of hardware. But a robot uprising, geez, I'm on the fence. I love Terminator. I grew
Yes.
up with Terminator,
Uh-huh.
especially Terminator Part 2. I love
Okay.
that one. Um, I don't know. I've seen certain things over the years develop, and cognitive computing, cognitive technology has certainly taken leaps and bounds, especially with the consumer side with Siri and Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And we are certainly going to see a lot more cognitive computing. Whether or not the self realization ever happens, I have no idea. That is something for the philosophers and the PhD computer scientists, neither of which I am of.
Okay.
If it ever happens, you know what? I look forward to it because I would like to talk to a self-aware computer one of these days.
Hopefully they abide by the three laws, you know. Hopefully. It's
Yeah.
not like a it's not a doomsday situation here. You're not,
Yes. Just
you're
hope
not
curiosity gets them first.
yes, yes. Okay. So Andrew, where can everybody find you and speak with you or talk to you or find more information maybe about the Light Association or your upcoming exchanged Koinyx?
Sure. So on both Litecoin Talk and Bitcoin Talk, I am known as TheMage. On Twitter and Reddit, I am known as the Real Mage because unfortunately the Mage was taken on both of those platforms. And you can certainly reach out to me in any of those pieces of media. Like I said, I always answer PMs, I always answer people, and you know what? Reach out to me, ask me questions, even follow me on Twitter or send me a DM, whatever be the case. And I love talking to people. I love social interactions and just talking about cryptos and just understanding people on a fundamental personal level.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I appreciate you speaking with me. This is quite a lovely conversation. I learned so much, really, in understanding, and I hope that our listeners here will able to come and catch up and talk with you and speak with you, and learn not only more about the Litecoin Association, but learn more from you as an advocate. Okay, Kat. Seriously, Mimi.
I bet you she's cute.
She is cute. She has these green eyes to die for. Like you want her to have as many kitties as possible because everyone cat should have her green eyes. That's how cute
Oh,
she is. But seriously, Mimi, come on now. But I hope that everyone is capable of reaching out with you, conversating with you, and learning more from you because you obviously are a strong advocate for not only for Litecoin but also for the cryptocurrencies, and they can, learn a thing or two, I think, from you and from this conversation as well.
well, thank you very much, and it's been an absolute pleasure to come on here and talk to you. And hopefully we can do this in the future.
I hope so as well. Thank you so much, and everyone to the moon. All right, and there we go.